Welcome to the Australia Post Business Talks podcast, where you can gain an insight into tips, tricks, and trends that will help improve your e-commerce business. My name is Gary Starr, Executive General Manager, Parcel Post and E-commerce Services at Australia Post. Today, I am speaking to Karina Barker, Founder and Creative Director of Re'lax Remade, a small business customer whose product is bespoke and in some ways quintessentially Australian, but it is currently breaking into overseas fashion markets all over the world. Mostly Australia, but also Europe, America, and Asia.
Thanks so much for having me, Gary.
Now, let's just start with what the business is all about. So tell me about Re'lax Remade. How did it start? How did you get the idea? And tell us about how that all started.
Well, we make hats and now jackets from vintage towels, and our offering is really luxurious and high-end and meticulously made. But the inspiration was really much more lowbrow. It's my dad's little terry-toweling bucket hat from the 70s. So all my childhood memories and most of my childhood photos, he's in this hat. And during lockdown, we all had time on our hands and all we were able to do was walk. So everyone was wearing hats, and I've always collected and used vintage homewares at home, and I had a beautiful collection of vintage towels. And just one day I thought, wow, these towels really remind me of my dad's hat, which is now, worn to threads. So I made him one. That was really reminiscent of the original, a floral one, and I kept making them and I started posting them on Instagram, and people really responded. People were excited about being able to buy a product that was new and exciting, but very responsible and only using existing materials. And the response has been amazing.
I can see one there on the chair. You got to hold it up.
This is my personal one.
That you're very well colour coordinated.
And this is our new jacket and rosettes. So it's interesting, most of the towels that we use were kept for good in grandma's cupboard or mum's linen cupboard, and this towel was from the 30s, so it's nearly 100 years old, but
Wow.
But when I sourced it, it hadn't even ever been washed, let alone used. So it's really exciting to me to give a new life to these old products, which people wouldn't use it for a towel anymore because they're tiny and not as luxurious as the towels you buy these days. But otherwise it would become a rag. What do you do with an old towel? So the design and the vintage colorways and the vintage designs are all so stunning that we're really having fun transforming them into more valuable pieces.
Now, you mentioned sourcing, so you must have run out of your own towels at some point. So how do you source? And
it's a huge part of
what's
the
the
job.
motivation for me to hand over a vintage towel?
Yeah, it's all really personal, isn't it? And I think also that's part of why the product resonates, because it is so personal and people are excited to give me their towels that was in their grandmother's beach house or something like that. So I built up a lot of relationships with vintage dealers who spend their life scouring estate sales and stuff, and now they come to me directly and offer them to me. And also just eBay, a lot of time spent on eBay. When I started the business, my youngest kid was only 3, so there wasn't very much sleep going on, and there was a lot of midnight eBay sourcing and Facebook groups, Instagram sellers, that sort of thing. But it's very particular and nuanced, and I now have a wealth of knowledge in this niche area of vintage towels, because a lot of them have different piles and different weaves and different details, and so I know what to look for now.
And you started, obviously you made that first one for your dad, but you must have a team. If you're making them, and I'm looking at your website, there's lots on there, you must have a team and have taught them how does that all work?
So I started at home in one room, which I was sharing with my husband, who was working from home in the pandemic. And for about 18 months, I did it all myself, the cutting and sewing and everything. And then we really had such a positive response, and a lot of influential people in the fashion world really got behind us. Like the We Wear Australian people were amazing at telling us that they believed in our product and that they wanted to help us amplify what we were doing. And so we really took a leap of faith and moved into a factory unit. My husband joined the business, and now there's 10 of us.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really special. And we work really hard to be a good, ethical place to work, because I think with sustainability, people are often thinking about the environment, but labor and the people that are making the clothes is such an essential part of being sustainable. Because, even fast fashion is handmade. It's all handmade, but we want our people to bring themselves to work. They've all got amazing, unique gifts to offer. And we close on a Wednesday because it is a really physically labor intensive process making things. And we want people to have a break and stay healthy. And so we put a lot of effort into being ethical in that way as well.
That's wonderful. So, I know often people go straight to environment with
Yeah,
sustainability, but
exactly.
it's a lot more when we talk about modern slavery and bringing your whole selves to work. Just on that sustainability bit, though, so you started obviously using towels that existed, so you weren't making things from scratch,
we don't
and
make
they're
any
vintage.
new.
You're not going to they're not inexpensive, so you're going to keep them, and they're a bit of a collector's item.
Exactly.
But what about your customer then? How important does that environment, does that credential matter versus the product in your mind?
I like to think they're beautiful enough that even without an environmental conscience, people would still want the hats. But I think a lot of our customers, they love fashion and they're motivated by fashion and they want to put their money behind something that has a positive impact. So what we're trying to do is create a product that is elevated and up there with any fashion item that you can find worldwide, but comes with this great feeling of doing the right thing, supporting local artisans, supporting the environment, also nostalgic memories. Like it feels like a really personal product, and definitely sustainability is that's the underlying premise of our whole business. And I think our customers are looking for it. Absolutely. They're looking for it.
So how do you position that then? So how do you position, they're beautiful to start with, but how do you then position that sustainability? And there's a particular demo.
I think
what's the demographic that buys this your product?
I've never wanted to overtly educate people on the environmental impacts of fashion. Thankfully, I think that's becoming a lot more mainstream to be aware of it now. But really just leading by example and being really open about what we do and really transparent. And social media plays a part in that because we can really show how we make things and the process. Like every hat takes at least 8 hours to make, and a lot of it is hand done. And I think having that transparency helps people to feel connected to the brand and trust in us. And so, demographically, we cover the whole age spectrum, and often people, probably our biggest buyers are slightly older, but they might buy them for their children. There's a lot of people that end up about half of our customers each time we release a collection are return customers, which is really nice because we know that the product's obviously holding up and they want to come back and share the experience with their families. A lot of people have multi-generational photos that they send in to us of 3 generations wearing their Re'lax Remade hats. So yeah, it covers a lot of bases.
Now, just turning to how you get product to your customers. So obviously delivery is important. You started a lot of stories I hear about starting from scratch and lodging at the post office. But what's your story around that, and how important is that end-to-end delivery for you?
Yeah, essential. It's really important to us that the packages arrive still looking like they've just left our factory, which they do with Australia Post. And we package our hats in boxes so that they're structured. They can be flattened, but we like it to arrive looking like a brand new,
pristine condition.
Yeah, exactly. So it needs to be reliable and no surprises and really good tracking. And also just at the local level, we always take our packages to the local post office and talk to the guy at the counter, and they've been amazing at educating us on the most cost-effective way to do it, and even getting things like packing tape that is recycled and things like that. Like there's a lot of we're trying to be conscious at every level, and working with the local post office on that is really valuable. And in fact, when it was just me working from home, there was one guy at the local post office, Daryl, who taught me everything. And I used to handwrite all the labels and take them into him, and he'd help me choose
I hope
the
you're
right
printing
packaging.
them now.
I am printing them now, yeah. My husband does
We
that.
do. There's more accurate. Yeah, they're clearly handwritten. We get through the system, but printed is better.
Yeah.
And what about things like return? I mean, I assume you don't get many returns, having looked at the product. But if there's if there's fraying or damage or you need to repair, what happens with that?
Yeah, well, we actually have a lifetime mending guarantee, which is a really exciting part of the business, I think, so that the product doesn't, once it leaves the factory, it's still part of our ecosystem and our responsibility. And if there is any problems, or even if you've just worn it to death and it's full of seawater, you can send it back in and we'll wash it and steam it and fluff it back up and structure it again. And so postage back and forth and that kind of open communication is really integral to our business.
And I guess that point about sending it back, like rather than ending up in landfill or thrown out, you'd prefer to repair it and
100%.
get reuse from it.
Yeah, really important. And because we have so many different styles now, I think there's definitely opportunity for us to have a secondhand market. We're looking into that. So people might want to send back a hat and try a different style and try that. I think people often want to try them all. So I think having a secondhand or a buyback or some kind of system where we can bring them back and send them back out again is really important. That's an exciting thing we're looking into at the moment.
Now, tell me, I mean, you started in the middle of COVID, so there would have been just challenge. I guess, unlike Richard, who Andrew spoke to, starting just before COVID in the luggage industry, not a great time to start. You started knowing that there was a pandemic, but did you think about, was it focused on Australian? Did you think about where the consumer lived, or did you just have a global sort of view of?
I think I saw it as a really quintessentially Australian product. But from the very beginning, we've had a lot of international interest, which was surprising to me, but exciting. I think it was an idea that people hadn't seen before, and some of our first collections we sold the whole collection to a boutique in London and another collection to Switzerland. And luckily for us at the time, the exchange rate meant that they were paying full price and able to mark it up on their end. So that was really exciting. And people love Australia, Sending overseas is really accessible now. Things only take about 5 days to get to the other side of the world. And so it's really opened up. I mean, the hats are going all over the world.
Right, that must be so exciting.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
And any sort of extra barriers with moving stuff overseas that you found? Exchange rate, customs, duty, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, the Australian dollar is not the best, but and we have had some problems with customs, but my husband's got that totally sorted out now and they fly straight through. But it's all about getting the right information and ticking the right boxes so things move swiftly through the process. But yeah, I think people are often nervous because we're in Australia and it's on the other side of the world to a lot of things. But because of the tracking being so reliable and our business being very open on social media, I think people have a trust. And we have had people buy in London and then 3 days later they've got their hat, so they've come back and bought a second one straight away because it's been much easier than they realised.
The world has definitely got smaller in terms of moving things around. And how do you market? So in terms of, you mentioned selling it to stores around the world, but are there particular markets where you think they're more beach going or they're more likely to wear hats, there's more sun?
We're really interested to talk to places like Liberties in London, places that have really luxurious artisanal sort of products. But certainly we've been approached by a lot of boutique hotels that are on the shore but are not, like they're still luxurious, but by the beach. I think there's opportunity everywhere, but I don't see them just as beach hats. I see them also as city hats, and a lot of them are quite. This one is just a bucket hat, but a lot of our styles are a lot more elevated and like high end.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, how do you market? Is it through influencers?
It's all Instagram.
It is all Instagram.
So honestly, we haven't put any extra effort into marketing until a few weeks ago when we hired our first social media manager, which is exciting.
And sorry, can I just ask to interrupt, but what led you to why did you do that? Why did you hire someone now? Do you felt you're at the right point to do that?
Yeah, so we've spent a long time building up the product and making sure that our manufacturing is perfect, and we've got it because each hat is one of a kind. You're coming up with different problems with each hat and each towel. You can't just cut a whole lot at once. You know, each towel's already lived its own life. It needs to be treated in its own individual way. So the training is quite intensive, and we've spent a lot of time making sure that the product is exactly perfect. And now that we know we can deliver that, and as fast as slow fashion can be, which is still slow, but as fast as we can keep it so that the value is really strong, then we felt ready to openly, overtly market.
Right.
But otherwise, we've just been putting it on Instagram and really putting ourselves out there, putting our values on display so that the right people find us.
And I guess you don't want to mass produce. I mean, by definition.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
It's not fast.
Yeah, exactly. It's growing at just the right pace now that we have a team of 10. When I was at home, just me, it was growing too quickly and it was really stressful. Which is obviously a good problem to have. But now that there's 10 of us and everyone's excellent at their job and we're really like a well-oiled machine, and now we're ready for being able to offer a lot more hats, being able to offer them wholesale, things like that. But it's been a long runway to get there.
Right. Well, that's great. Now, you mentioned We Wear Australian a bit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be small fashion houses out there listening today that won't be aware of We Wear Australian, what it means. So just tell us a bit about it and why you joined. What has it done for you?
It's a beautiful initiative that is about kind of umbrellaing and nurturing small independent Australian designers and together amplifying their voice in a way that is, on par with all the beautiful fashion coming out of Paris and everywhere else. The way that they present us, the way that the We Wear Australian campaign presents these independent Australian designers really puts them out there on a world stage, puts them in front of the right eyes and really elevates the products and amplifies the voices, and it's a real collaborative kind of effort.
I saw some of the videos from a campaign earlier this year or last year, and they're just in Northern Territory, far north Queensland, so beautiful parts of it, very Australian,
yes,
but really sort of trying to, brand Australia is very is a good brand around the world.
Exactly.
Right, okay. Now, I know there'll be lots of people out there who will be interested in any advice you have around starting from scratch, anything that you can think of that you've learned along the journey that you'd impart.
I think asking for help and really figuring out the parts of your business that you're not confident in and looking for people that can help you with that area. We've worked with a mentor called the Fashion Advocate. She's amazing and she's really given us fantastic advice. We've worked with Kelly from We Were Australian, and she gives incredible industry-specific advice and support. And so really looking for the people that are on your wavelength and that can offer you strategies that don't come naturally to your personal skill set.
Well, it's important to know what you're good at and where you need help.
Yeah.
And fast forward 5 years, where is Re'lax Remade?
I think we're in Liberties and we're in department stores in Europe, and hopefully still in our beautiful little colourful factory in Belrose with our little team. I don't think we want to grow too big because I think the product is so personal. That's not really what it's about, but we want to obviously make enough that we can keep everyone employed and keep the products at a great level of quality. So I think just getting them out there and having more customers aware of the value of handmade goods. Well, all goods are handmade, but the value that, like the true cost of what it takes to make an item, and having consumers that really understand and want to put their buying power behind that.
And my last question, from a sourcing perspective, I mean, there are, I don't know how many people, hundreds of people listening today, is Are you looking for more?
Absolutely. Message me with your towels,
Okay.
please. The era that I love the best is around 60s, 70s or earlier. But please do. I would love to see anyone's linen cupboards.
Well, I'll have a look when I get home
Thank
tonight.
you.
Well, look, Karina, thanks so much for joining us today and for sharing your personal business journey.
Thanks,
I'm going to
Gary.
continue to watch with interest as your business continues to grow and flourish. And, best of luck as the business grows.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Gary.